It started with a video, just 2 minutes and 17 seconds long. Blurry, grainy, recorded from a ceiling corner no one even knew had a camera. In it, a teenage girl trembling, pale, and visibly terrified stands alone in a hospital hallway. Around her, a group of medical staff laugh. One points a phone at her. Another shakes their head, smirking. And someone, off camera, says the words that would later haunt millions of viewers across America. "You're not sick, sweetheart. You're just crazy." The girl covers her face, collapsing to the floor as the laughter echoes. For nearly a year, no one outside that hospital knew what had really happened that night, until the footage surfaced online and changed everything. Please make sure to subscribe to Cold Case Secrets, where we uncover the truth behind the world's darkest and most disturbing real-life mysteries. Her name was Emily Carter. She is 17 years old. From Asheville, North Carolina, a quiet mountain town where people still waved to their neighbors and local diners kept the same waitresses for decades. Emily wasn't the kind of teen who sought attention. She was quiet, artistic, the kind who carried sketchbooks instead of smartphones. Her friends described her as sensitive, sweet, and sometimes too trusting. Her teachers said she had a future in design because she saw beauty in small things. But by spring of 2022, her behavior began to change. Her parents noticed sleepless nights, long silences, and a quiet fear that seemed to cling to her even in daylight. Then came the panic attacks. She told her mom she kept hearing whispers in the hall, tapping at her window at night. Doctors said it was anxiety. One even suggested depression brought on by the isolation of the pandemic. But what happened next would turn a family's cry for help into a national scandal and a story that would question everything we think we know about trust, authority, and the places meant to protect us. It was Friday, March 4, 2022, when Emily's mother, Lisa Carter, drove her to Mountain View Regional Hospital. It was late around 10:40 p.m. Lisa said Emily had been pacing, shaking, and mumbling that something was wrong with her blood. At triage, the nurse noted possible panic episode. Emily begged to see a doctor, but according to the hospital's internal log later leaked to the media, she was made to wait. Almost 45 minutes. Witnesses would later say she started crying. She said, "They think I'm faking it." And that staff rolled their eyes. At 11:27 p.m., Emily collapsed in the waiting area. A paramedic nearby rushed over. Vitals, erratic pulse, cold skin, shallow breathing. But for reasons still unclear, she wasn't admitted to the main ER ward immediately. Instead, she was wheeled into a small observation room near the back out of sight for most patients. And that's where the camera footage later came from. When police first obtained the video, it was considered hospital property. It never should have left the archives. But sometime in early 2023, nearly a year later, it appeared online. Posted to a Reddit thread titled, "They Said She Lied." The clip was brutal in its simplicity. Emily sitting on the edge of a bed, clutching her stomach. A nurse standing over her, shaking a chart. 2 others were laughing near the door. And then the sound. That word again. Crazy. The laughter. Emily's quiet sobs. And finally, the sound of a tray falling to the floor before the footage cuts abruptly to black. The Reddit post claimed the video came from an anonymous insider, a whistleblower who couldn't stay silent anymore. Within 48 hours, it had over 6 million views, thousands of comments, and national headlines demanding answers. Teen humiliated by hospital staff, hidden footage sparks outrage. But what few people knew was that this wasn't just a story about neglect or cruelty. It was something far darker. Because just 3 hours after that video ended, Emily Carter vanished. At 2:48 a.m., according to hospital records, Emily was released to parental care. But her mother never signed discharge papers. In fact, Lisa Carter was asleep in her car in the hospital parking lot waiting for word from the staff. Security footage from the front entrance shows something strange. A figure resembling Emily, barefoot and wearing a hospital gown, walking out through a side exit at 2:57 a.m. She's unsteady, glancing over her shoulder. Then she disappears into the fog. No one sees her again. For weeks, search parties combed through the nearby forest. Posters flooded social media. News crews camped outside the hospital. And while the administrators promised full cooperation, investigators quickly hit walls. Body cam footage from one officer recorded him muttering, "They're hiding something." It wasn't just a missing person case anymore. It was a cover-up waiting to be cracked open. When Detective Mara Sullivan was assigned to Emily's case, she noticed something off right away. Every staff member interviewed used the same phrases. "She was stable. She left voluntarily. We followed protocol." But hospital surveillance files told a different story. Several hours of footage were missing specifically from the corridor leading to the back observation room. The timestamps jumped. The digital logs had been altered. Even more chilling, the hospital's IT manager resigned 2 days after Emily vanished. His name was Daniel Brooks, and when reporters tried to contact him, he was gone and his apartment emptied overnight. But the investigation didn't stall. A small-town newspaper, the Asheville Ledger, received an unmarked envelope one morning in May 2023. Inside, a USB drive. On it are 5 video files labeled Room 9. The same room Emily had been placed in. The first few clips matched the viral footage with the same angle, same lighting. But as the videos continued, new details emerged. In one, you can see a man in scrubs entering the room, unplugging something from the wall. In another, Emily tries to stand, but collapses. A nurse walks in, looks at her and walks right back out. And in the final video, time-stamped 2:46 a.m., just minutes before she supposedly checked out, Emily appears awake, sitting upright. Someone enters, a face not visible. They hand her what looks like a clipboard and whisper something. Emily hesitates, then nods. The figure turns, glances directly at the camera, and then the feed cuts out. The image freezes just long enough to catch one chilling detail: the hospital ID badge on their chest. Brooks, D. Information Technology. When the story broke, the hospital released a statement calling the footage doctored and deeply misleading. They claimed Emily had suffered from dissociative episodes, and that staff acted according to psychiatric safety protocols. But the public wasn't buying it. By summer 2023, protests formed outside Mountain View Regional. Former employees began coming forward anonymously, describing toxic management and pressure to destroy patient records. A former nurse later told NBC Charlotte, "We were told to keep quiet or risk our licenses. But everyone knew something happened that night." Meanwhile, Lisa Carter refused to give up. She held vigils, launched petitions, and pushed lawmakers for an independent investigation. Her voice trembled in interviews, but her message stayed the same. "My daughter went into that hospital asking for help, and they made her disappear." In October 2023, a digital forensic analyst named Aidan Clark was hired by a private legal firm representing the Carters. His job: recover deleted data from hospital archives. What he found would shift the entire case. Buried deep within the metadata of a backup drive mislabeled as elevator maintenance was a hidden folder of system logs. They showed that at 2:43 a.m., 3 separate cameras were remotely disabled by someone logged in under the username d.brooks_admin. 2 minutes later, the same account reactivated the cameras but redirected their feeds to a private external IP address. In other words, someone wasn't erasing footage. They were rerouting it. And when Clark traced that IP address, it led to an abandoned storage facility just outside of town. The same facility Brooks had leased under a different name 6 months earlier. Detectives searched the building in November. Inside, they found rows of outdated computer towers humming softly in the dark. Dozens of encrypted hard drives. And on one of them, a folder named Test Subjects. Within that folder were subfiles labeled by date. One stood out: 03_04_22, the night Emily disappeared. Clark managed to decrypt only part of it before the system crashed. Inside, a short video clip played shaky, handheld footage. Emily lying on a stretcher. Her hospital gown was replaced by a sterile smock, a mask over her mouth, and a male voice saying, "Subject appears compliant." Proceeding to the next phase. Then static. Forensic experts verified the voice as a 98% match for Daniel Brooks. The hospital denied knowing him despite payroll records proving his employment. Suddenly, what had seemed like a tragic case of mistreatment became something much more sinister. Rumors spread online of illegal medical trials, psych experiments, and patients disappearing off record. Conspiracy theorists flooded forums with theories about Project Halcyon, a rumored private research group linked to medical data harvesting. But the authorities said little. The FBI quietly stepped in, and within weeks, the hospital shut down for restructuring. Just when the story seemed to settle into silence, something new surfaced. A new upload on a darknet site timestamped January 2024. Title: Room 9 Recovered Footage. The uploader, Witness Zero. In the clip, the same hospital room appears with lights flickering. The bed is empty, but there's movement in the reflection of the glass door. A figure steps into frame, face pale, eyes sunken. It's Emily. Older, weaker, but alive. She looks directly into the camera and whispers, "They said it was to make us better, but we never left." Then the screen cuts to static and a set of coordinates flashes briefly across the bottom. The location: a decommissioned wing of a different hospital, one owned by the same healthcare corporation. And then, nothing. The video vanishes. The account was deleted. Today, more than 3 years after that night, Emily Carter is still officially listed as missing. Her mother continues to fight for answers. The FBI investigation remains sealed, and Mountain View Regional stands abandoned, its windows boarded, its walls marked with graffiti that reads, "We remember Emily." For many, her story became a symbol of systemic betrayal, a chilling reminder that sometimes the institutions we trust most can harbor the darkest secrets. But for others, it's not over. Because according to one, anonymous agent, files recovered from Brooks's servers hinted at something bigger. A list of names, dates, and hospitals across multiple states. And on that list, the last entry read, Subject E22 status, recovered. If this story shook you, make sure to subscribe to Cold Case Secrets, where we uncover the truth behind the world's darkest mysteries. Because somewhere out there, another camera might still be recording, and another secret waiting to surface. Thank you for watching Cold Case Secrets.